Hi, my name is Jonathan Chalker, and this is my channel, Jonny Demo. I am an AI and vibe coding enthusiast. I am also a product management executive at a national brand with 5,700 locations across the country. I also lead B2B product used by franchisees and 17,000 employees. I lead B2C software for our 2 million customers. My content is in no way affiliated or sanctioned with my employer, and all opinions and anecdotes shared here are fully my own. All projects shared here are done on my own time and not proprietary to any formal corporate entity. With that out of the way, this is my second video on vibe coding, and it's been a couple weeks since my last, mainly due to some travel. This will not be a live coding session like my previous, but I've done a lot over the past couple weeks, and I want to share some of what I've done and, most importantly, some of what I've learned. Because outside of new levels of capability and speed in software development, learning is one of the most important key benefits you'll get from vibe coding. In my last video, I did a live vibe coding session whereby I would say, made the fundamentals of an application that was super convenient. The main gist of the application is that it will go to a recipe website and extract a clean recipe from it, avoiding all of the crazy ads and all of the long narrative associated with, recipe sites, the thing that drives us all so crazy when we want to just go get a recipe and we have to navigate through all this stuff. And even just hitting the skip to recipe isn't always the cure, because you'll just keep getting pop-ups and stuff sent over there, which, by the way, has been an issue for the app. But I'm getting closer and closer to remedying it. I will talk a little bit more about that project here in a bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened after that. So I posted a video of that session along with an article on LinkedIn. And the article was picked up and added to a journal with probably 10 or 12, maybe 15 other articles, all related to vibe coding. And it spurred this big thread. And in that thread, wow, you have two big differences in camps. You have huge detractors of vibe coding. Those that are like, you are deluded if you think vibe coding is bringing any value whatsoever. You are deluded if you think by using AI to code, you are generating any value whatsoever. It is just nowhere near what it needs to be to generate value. I see why someone might have those thoughts, especially given the tendency of AI to hallucinate, which has been an issue. Accuracy. But here's where I think some of those detractors go wrong, or at least a little bit misguided. I think those that are in that camp are probably people who are expert coders, very strong coders. And they are very good at the type of coding that they do. And maybe they're really good full stack coders. And in those realms, they are probably superior to the AI still, in the things that they know the most. But AI coding spans so many different approaches, techniques, code bases, stacks. There's no way that any individual or even small coding, small engineering organization, is going to surpass honestly the quality and depth and breadth of coding that AI can do. And so in some ways, I think they might be, sort of deluding themselves a little bit. At the same time, one can be very naive. And I'll say that in my initial approaches to vibe coding, I was naive, but I was very clear about that. I used to code a lot, but it was almost 15, 20 years ago. I'm not a great coder. I know just enough to be dangerous. And so anyone watching my videos would be like, that guy's an idiot. Why doesn't he just do X? And I use the AI to help me do those things. And it's okay. My whole point is I want to be able to get through things quickly, and I want to learn as I go. So for someone like me who is a product manager, very technically savvy, I actually know plenty of technology at a relatively deep level, just depending on what it is, like most people. And that has really helped me a lot to be probably on average better product manager in terms of my ability to communicate with developers, to express a vision, to express a concept, to document what we're trying to do, and get to a point where it is deliverable. Especially when it comes to making hard decisions, when you come back and be like, here's A, B, and C options. Which one do you want to go with? It's not always about experience and usability. Often it is, but sometimes it is like, what is the right technical solution to go with? Because that might open the door or create avenues for future development. That if you're just making snap decisions and you're not really thinking the long term, and you don't really understand the technology at any level, and don't know what kind of good questions to ask, that can kind of lock you down and really hamper your efforts in the future. Back to the naysayers for a moment. Yes, it is unlikely that you're going to do a complicated or complex app within a short period of time and you're just going to nail it. I have seen all the same videos that everybody else has where people are one-shotting games, and they're pretty good. Ish. They're not these epic things that you're going to go pay a bunch of money for. So when someone says you're not really delivering value by vibe coding, I get a little bit of where they're coming from. But I don't think that's really the point. You can few shot some pretty good, valuable things. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. But what is more important is that for more complex things, you can iterate so much faster. Especially if I'm trying to figure out the right interface, the right style, maybe data management. I can iterate that very quickly, and I can cover a lot of ground in way less time than it would have covered in the past, and that is totally okay. I have spent hours and hours and hours on one of the projects that I'm going to talk about here. Many, 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 many hours, okay? I have, and honestly, there were times I thought I would give up. But I still got so much more done than I would have gotten done if I was not using an AI coding partner. I know I would have given up at some point, and you'll understand why here in just a few minutes. So I get it. People are not necessarily there yet, but I do want to say, if you're a product manager, you will benefit so much by learning to vibe code. Learning to code on any basic level will help you so much, but vibe coding will allow you to do more while you're learning. And the AI is a coach as much as it is a coding partner. And just think about the quality of being able to have working prototypes, including some data handling that you can iterate on, that you can put in front of users, and they can give you feedback. You can go back and within minutes, hours, days, have a new version ready to come back to them. You can get feedback. You can move very quickly through that process. Likewise, when you're sharing with the developers, you can show them rather than tell them. I understand the importance of the documentation. I spend a tremendous amount of time in canvases and BDDs and many other, Miro and many other, technical artifacts. But that I am starting to feel, while not wasted work, is not as impactful, is not as efficient as being able to show someone a mostly working concept so they can understand what it is you're trying to do. The developers then give you feedback about the thing that you're trying to do, and you can iterate on that. Showing is better than telling. And if you do it well, you can pull the requirements, most of them. You'll need to tweak them some. You'll need to go and make sure you don't want to just rely on the AI. You need to be able to go and understand what it has done and make changes and edits to it that make sense for what it is that, the level of quality that you're striving for. You should never just wholly rely on something AI does. You should look at it, read it deeply, understand it, and make changes. It's still going to be more efficient than if you had tried to do it yourself from scratch. But being able to show someone a working application, they can be like, hey, I totally see what you are doing there. Now, Jonny, I would have done that maybe a little differently. I would have maybe taken this approach. Have you considered doing this? No, I hadn't considered doing that. That makes a lot of sense. Let me go give that a shot. And then I can go back. I can come back with a version that's much closer to that. They can say, yeah, that's more like how I would have thought about doing this thing. And now they can take that and they have some target. They know what they're trying to do. And you can sync up on those things as they go. How much deviation is there between the software that they're making and the thing that you expected or thought that they were doing? Let's talk about some of the stuff I've done in the last couple of weeks. One of the things I needed, I have JonnyDemo.com. And one of the things that I wanted was just a landing page. On this landing page, I am going to have cards links off to my projects in production. A lot of the applications I'm writing use AI API keys, and they generate expense every time you run the application. And for me, that's fine. And for me sharing with some other people, some friends or whatnot, that's good. I don't mind generating a little bit of expense. But I don't want just some schmo that sees a video to go to my site and go and run the application a bunch of times, even though I'm taking precautions and putting in rate limits and things. That's not an expense I want to take. So if you go to Jonny Demo, I want to be able to get to my project portfolio. It'd allow me to very easily pop in and show someone what I'm doing. Number two, I want to put links to these videos. I want to maybe have a blog. So I needed a landing page, and we just wanted to start with having cards that linked off to my projects. And so here I have this over here. This is my Jonny Demo landing page. And here. I love this. This was almost a one-shot. This was almost a one-shot application, one-shot page. I feel like I did a pretty decent job of prompting here. I got this image from Flux, which I run locally in Comfy UI. And the colors are great. They match up really well. I told it I wanted a pale purple, color palette. I told it something like I wanted sort of retro futurist. I might even have said the word 80s or 70s. I don't know. I don't have the prompt right in front of me, but I like it. And that's what matters. And I really like little things that the AI does that I wouldn't have thought of. I didn't tell it to do this cool animation here on the card. And I think that's sort of slick. I didn't tell it to include the different technologies and these tags. It just added those tags based on it knows the software I've been writing. And then it was cleverly able to take the theme that I have for my recipe app and include it here in the deploy. So I think this is pretty cool. I did this in 15 or 20 minutes. Okay? And I think this is cool for 15 or 20 minutes. But from here today, you can navigate to the recipe app here. I've already added in my access code, so I have access granted. I have this cool little countdown here. It just counts down how much longer I've got before I need to enter an access code again. I'm going to pick a recipe. I like this slow cooker bolognese recipe. This link was provided by a friend. We'll deploy the droid. One of the things I like that Claude came up with this kind of taking the theme, and he's, AIs tend to take a thing and do a little bit more of it than you maybe want them to do. But this was kind of cool. He took the theme that we have about droid, and so for all the statuses, they're themed. I think it's cute, right? I'll probably change this. Maybe I'll go to a single line and just change the icons and change the statuses in a single line until I get to the end. You can see that Claude, or at least the recipe droid, has come back with my slow cooker bolognese recipe. It looks good. I know this recipe well, so I know almost, I've tested so many times, I know right away when I see this, whether it is the right recipe. They go right down to this bottom 4 or 5 bullet points here, and I'll know whether it got it right or not. And sometimes it doesn't, and I'll talk about that in a sec. You got your instructions, you got your notes, and then you have an image. I get the image about 80% of the time. Tells me my mission was completed. In fact, this looks different if you're in a wider screen. You get these, you get this as a side card, side by side. Tells me my cost. So this is the actual cost or the calculated cost of running the API AI for OCR extraction. That's mainly what it does here. Like I said, I'm going to cover a little bit of how this works here in a second. And then I give full attribution. I give the link to the site, and I also make sure that everyone is clear that all of the recipe content is copyrighted property of the original source. Recipe Droid simply acts as clean data. And for myself, I put this is going to be gone probably when I have something that's more shareable, because this isn't really fully ready for prime time, but there's a lot here. A lot more is going on under the hood than you think. And then I've got this little window here to basically see the version, the clip that it took for the recipe, which is very important when I'm troubleshooting, because that could be a CAPTCHA on a screen, which totally breaks the recipe collection. It can be, there's a pop-up ad like, hey, give us your email to get a free subscription or to get notifications. That will sometimes break the screenshot. So I need to be able to see what came back. So it was funny. When I coded this originally, it was coming back and doing all of this and giving a recipe. And I thought, okay, the API went and got the recipe from the site. And it followed my instructions. And the reason I thought that is because if you go into the chat, whether that's Claude or Gemini or whatever, you can tell it to go browse and get content from a website. You can give it a specific site. It will go and browse and pull the content back for you. It can pull back images. It can pull back very specific content from the site. That is not something that you can do with the API. That is not a thing. I believe it will become a thing. I don't see how it doesn't become a thing. I'm sure it's a security thing. I'm sure that there is a level of plausible deniability that if your hands aren't on the keys and you do something as a bad actor or malicious via AI, and you're doing that via API in an automated way, you can say, oh, it did something that I didn't want it to do. That was not my intent. And it went and did a bunch of those things. And I'm sorry, I wasn't there looking at it. It wasn't supervised. Whereas if you're in the chat, it is supervised because they have very strong terms and conditions against doing any sort of scraping on the chat sites themselves. You could probably do it, though. I don't know. They're pretty smart. They probably figured out how to block scrapers and automation as well. And so what we're doing in this app is we are using Playwright to go to the page. It is in a fairly sophisticated way. I have a lot of JavaScript in the service doing this in a fairly sophisticated way. It is looking for various markers and trying to find the clean recipe card. Sometimes that's the anchor, the destination for just jump to recipe. That doesn't always work. In fact, that works about 40% of the time. You'd think it would work a lot more because it's jumped to the recipe. But there's also options for maybe going to the print page. Again, doesn't work in every case. Some sites will not let you go directly to the print page. If you go directly to the print page without linking off to there from one of their other properties, they'll just put you back to the home page. So going and finding the recipe is much harder than you might think. We spent hours getting this right. And I'm still probably about 70-80%. There's more work to do there in tuning that. Another thing is handing that back as something useful. So it has to have a bounding box around the screen captures. It goes and finds a recipe. It has a bounding box on the container for whatever recipe it finds. I was just showing you some of that. Feeds the image back of the screenshot I hand that back to Claude for extraction. And that is a very detailed extraction. That prompt is really strong. It tells it exactly what I want from the image, and it brings it back in very well-structured, predefined JSON that I can use then to populate this UI. So again, there's probably 8 different services going on. One of the most important things, however, though, is not only did I learn that the API doesn't go and surf websites, I learned that I cannot deploy an app that runs Playwright in my standard hosting environment. So I was using, I will not say the name, but I was using a shared hosting site that I've been using for years, never had any problems, been able to run most dependencies, most third-party applications, but this one was being blocked. And I kind of get it. You have to be able to spawn, headless browser and things like that. So I called them, and I called 3 times. It was funny. When I called, they said, yeah, no problem. We'll unblock that. Give it 2 hours, 24 hours, and you should be good. Finally, they just came, the third call, they came back and they said, you're not going to be able to do this. I've talked to the engineers, and they said this is just completely forbidden. It is a group policy. You're not going to be able to do it. So then, because I really wanted to have this thing run in production, I took a leap I wasn't sure I was ready to take. I made the move from my shared hosting environment to VPS. I was able to find a really killer deal with Hostinger, and they are not a sponsor at all of this video. This is the service that I found and I used. I found some referral somewhere, and I got like 70% off. Now the challenge is Hostinger is all Linux based. There's no Windows hosting, and I've been hosting all my stuff on Windows hosting and IIS forever. But what was funny was that Gemini, I normally use Claude, but I was doing some interaction with Gemini, basically talked me into making the leap to VPS and talked me into a certain structure that I could use to make all of my .NET Core apps work, flawlessly. And it told me about the pros and cons, but basically it was like, hey, you really should do this. This is the way to do it. You are going to have so much more capability and freedom in this environment with VPS, specifically, but also with Linux, for better or worse, you have a lot of control. And it gave me a really good strategy for doing this. And we went through, really, it was hours, but it was probably going to be something that was going to take me even longer. But it took me a couple, I think my first app was up within an hour. So my first initial setup was an hour, but I spent more hours getting this recipe thing to work because it's much more complicated. So after I made the move to VPS, I was migrating my recipe app, and we were having a tremendous amount of problems with, incompatibilities between different dependencies, versioning, problems with file folder hierarchy, things being in the wrong place, it not being able to find things, constant having to figure out whether something had permissions to access another thing. And I was getting very frustrated after many hours. And I got into what I would call a doom loop, with AI, where you get an error and you resolve it. Then you get to the next error and you work to resolve that, but it reintroduces the previous error. And so you're just bouncing back and forth. It could be 2 errors, it could be 3 errors, but you're basically in a loop. You're in a cycle, and you go through this over and over and over. And here's one thing that I have completely come to understand about AIs. Humans have temporal awareness, and AIs do not have temporal awareness. And I knew that was the case, but I don't think I realized how bad it was. So as a human, I can realize we are in a loop. I've seen the same error. I've seen the same resolution. We have taken the same path many times. Whereas the AI does not understand it has been down this path multiple times. Even though it can go and read the entire, knows the entire conversation, it doesn't understand that you just did this 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago. It doesn't understand you've done this 5 times in the last hour. It doesn't understand you've done this, multiple times. So it is incredibly frustrating and infuriating when that happens. So as someone who is vibe coding, as someone who is using AI, you have to be able to say, I've seen this before, stop, and be ready to completely change your strategy and your approach to solving whatever problem you're trying to solve. And that's exactly what we did. Playwright was really the root of all of my issues for the most part, in terms of compatibility with certain versions of browsers and certain things in .NET. And so what we did, AI helped me to do, is we containerized Playwright. It has a lot of complex logic in it. And the service has 5 different API endpoints inside, 5 different endpoints inside the service. And that is working like a champ. I would have never had the guts to do this if not for AI. And I know that containerization is a huge thing. It has been for some time. And sure, you're looking at me, you're like, oh, of course, Chalker, that is the way it should go. That's how everybody does .NET Core apps, in the Linux environment. All of it's containerized these days. Sure, I get that. I'm not doing this professionally, guys. I am a product manager, okay? I leave that stuff to our DevOps team. But anyway, this was a huge learning for me. I've been really excited in the milestones I've been able to meet. The app is up and running live in production for the first time. It is working largely as I expect it to work. And now I'm going to be able to iterate, and I'll be able to see my updates in production. And that is going to be hugely fulfilling. So I am about to go ahead and wrap this up. I just wanted you guys to know I've been doing a lot. I'm learning a ton. I have spent hours. It has been frustrating at times, but I have a pretty good patience. And I don't think I would have had the confidence to continue pushing forward through some of the more frustrating times if not for my AI coding partners and my coach. That this is it. It is all about learning and doing things that you otherwise would just not have any confidence whatsoever to do. That is the key benefit, one of the key benefits that you're going to get from vibe coding. Anyway, that's it for me for now. I know I talked a lot about things. I didn't show quite as much as I did last time, and we didn't do any live coding. Next time we come back, we'll do some live coding. I got lots of iteration, like little things I want to do to this recipe site. You can do them with me in my next video. Until then, I really hope that you will go on your own vibe coding adventures. Thanks.